can that anger caused by betrayal really lead someone down an incredibly dark path of turning real, innocent humans into sandwiches at a roadside pit stop? Keep watching today's case to find out more. Hi guys, I really hope you're having a good day so far. Today we're going to be talking about Joe Metheny, and this is a case that was actually suggested by one of you guys, so I really appreciate the case suggestions and hope to cover more cases that you guys suggest in the future. This case was actually really difficult to research. There's a complete lack of information available online, and it's something I found really surprising because the case is so crazy, so I'd expect a lot more to be out there. If you are new here or haven't subscribed yet, I would really appreciate if you could show my channel some love by clicking the subscribe button down below. But before we do get into today's case, I just want to give my usual disclaimers. This video contains topics which may be distressing to some viewers. These topics include substance abuse, SA, and of course murder. There may be other distressing topics that I have missed from this list, so viewer discretion is definitely advised. As always, if you don't feel like today's case is suitable for you, feel free to click off of the video, and hopefully I can see you again in the future when we're going to be talking about a topic which is more suitable for you. I would also like to quickly mention that all of the information we're going to be talking about today has come from research which I have conducted through sources which are readily available on the internet. No disrespect is intended with this presentation in any way, and it's all for educational purposes only. I tried to get all of the information correct to the best of my ability, but I do apologise if there are any mistakes at all. And this is something which is incredibly important to keep in mind for this case, especially due to the sheer lack of information I could find online. I tried to only include things that I could verify through multiple sources, but for a lot of them, there was also inconsistencies between those sources as well, so I tried my best to piece together the parts as best as I could. But like I said, please keep this in mind. Joseph Roy Metheny was born on the 2nd of March 1955 to parents Audra Earl Metheny and Jean Elliott Metheny. He was one of 6 children, but as I said, I couldn't find any more information on the siblings than that. So I just know from several sources they all mentioned that he was one of 6 children. I don't know in what order, whether he was youngest, oldest, middle, whatever. I just know that there were 5 other siblings in the mix. It is reported that he had quite a difficult childhood, and his family was said to live in poverty in West Virginia, and this resulted in his mum having to work 2 jobs in order to support them all, as his father was an alcoholic who worked as a labourer. So his mum took on quite a lot just to keep the family going. Joe claims that he was abused as a child and placed into foster-like homes, even at one point claiming that both of his parents were dead. But there has been subsequent interviews from his very alive mother, which has contradicted this, of course, and she stated that he was a smart young boy who actually did have a good childhood and a pretty good home growing up. She also claimed that none of her children were ever actually given up or placed into foster care. So it's, you know, anything that Joe says you should kind of take with a pinch of salt. He's a bit of a liar. One thing we do actually know is that Joe's father did pass away, and this was because of a tragic car accident in Terra Alta, West Virginia, when Joe was just 6 years old, which is said to have been extremely upsetting for the whole family, and something that was really difficult for them all to process. And this is what forced Joe's mother to have to work even longer and harder to make ends meet for the family. And because of this, she did state that she did everything she could to keep the family together and a roof over their heads and food on the table, which did mean that she often sadly didn't see her children very much because she was working so much just to keep them in a safe position, you know, with a roof over their head, like I said. Within his adult life, Joe was an extremely large man. He was 6 foot 1 inch tall, which is 185 centimeters, and weighed approximately 450 pounds or 204 kilograms. And he was given the ironic nickname of Tiny by his friends and accomplices. I don't want to say accomplices, actually. It's like friends and family, maybe. In 1973, when Joe turned 18, he joined the army where he was stationed in Germany. Joe did state that he was stationed in Vietnam, which is where he became addicted to heroin, but his mother recalls that she does not remember him ever being stationed in Vietnam, and according to several sources, there have never actually been any proof that he served in Vietnam at all. And the Vietnam War did end in 1975, just 2 years after he joined the army. So, you know, as always, he's a bit of a liar, so There's no actual proof of him serving in Vietnam at all, but there is proof of him serving in Germany. During his time serving in the army, Joe began to drift away from his family, with his relationship completely disintegrating with his mother when Joe failed to contact her for 10 whole years. When he left the army, Joe was reported to work in physical labor and blue-collar jobs, such as in lumber yards and also as a forklift driver. He was reported to be intelligent and well-mannered by his colleagues, but due to his addiction to drugs, he struggled to keep a roof over his head and was often found living in homeless camps where he would abuse drugs such as crack cocaine and heroin with the other homeless people. He managed to hold up a job, from what I could find, for the whole time, so it's not like he couldn't function enough to, not hold up a job. He did have a job, but he just used all of that money on to fuel his drug addictions the whole time, so he could never actually afford to keep a roof over his head or anything. He was just kind of focused on fueling that addiction. We finally have a picture. Wow, what a flattering picture as well. He eventually managed to purchase a trailer home in South Baltimore where he lived with his girlfriend and their son. But one day in 1994, when returning home to his girlfriend and 6-year-old son after a long drive during his work as a truck driver, Joe found out that his girlfriend wasn't home and neither was his son. His girlfriend, like Joe himself, was suffering from a drug addiction, and Joe believed that she had run away with a man, which filled him with a lot of rage. He never actually saw them again, from what I can gather. He actually spent the next few days searching for them both by going to halfway houses, checking areas which he knew were commonly inhabited by the homeless or drug dealers, which are places like under bridges, and he asked the people he came across for any information on the whereabouts of where his girlfriend and son might be. And I just want to mention that some references say that it was his wife rather than his girlfriend, but I couldn't find any official evidence of them being married, so that's why I chose to just refer to her as his girlfriend, because I'm not exactly sure. Some said girlfriend, some said wife. I'm not exactly sure, but there's nothing, I don't know. Like, that's what I mean by this case. It's really, really weird. There's a lot of things that are just missing. I don't know a name of his girlfriend, wife, son, no information about the son. This is when he was given information that led him to a bridge, which was known to be inhabited by homeless people. And you can see a picture of the bridge right there, or what a source claims to be the bridge. I can't confirm it. And it was here that Joe came across two 33-year-old homeless men, and their names were Randall Brewer and Randy Piker, who were living in a homeless campsite under the Hanover Street Bridge in Baltimore, which, like I said, is, I think, that bridge. Joe asked them both if they knew any information about the whereabouts of his girlfriend and son, but when they denied any knowledge of it, this made Joe extremely angry because he didn't believe them. He thought they actually knew more than what they were letting on. Because of this, he found an axe and used it to murder both of the men. Their bodies were later found on the 2nd of August 1995 on top of a mattress with axe wounds to the head. And I saw lots of different things regarding this. Some say that he dumped the bodies in the water. Others say that they were found on a mattress. From what I can find, with how easily the bodies were found, I do believe it's more likely that they were found on the mattress than in the water, but obviously I can't prove it. I also found one source stating that he also murdered 2 nearby sex workers and a fisherman who he believed witnessed the crimes, but again, can't confirm this, and the source didn't seem extremely reliable, so again, take it with a grain of salt. Following the discovery of the bodies, he actually spent approximately 1.5 years in jail awaiting trial for the murders, but managed to get away with both of them by lying in court and stating he had no involvement. So the police couldn't convict him due to a lack of evidence. Another homeless man was convicted of these crimes, apparently, but he did also murder some other people as well, from what I heard. This other homeless man found the axe that Joe had used to kill these homeless guys, and then used it to kill other homeless guys. Yeah, it's not a very great area, and apparently there was a lot of, like, homeless gang rivalry going on in the area, and that's why there was just so much violence. Joe actually claimed that he had committed a total of 5 murders in only 7 hours on this day, further stating it was the first murders that he had ever committed, but that seems like, I don't know, that's what you'd go to? That's such a violent act on your, it just, I don't know, he seemed to do it with such ease. Again, I have no proof on whether there were more, as I couldn't find any sources about them finding bodies that were reliable or anything, or names or anything like that. And other than those of Randall and Randy, none of them were ever found in the area, from what I found. And the area was even searched. The river in front of it, as you can see in the picture, was actually searched by police divers after he admitted to it later on. And they could never find a body. But then again, if it's a flowing river, they're not just going to sink. So he found out 6 months after the murders had taken place that his girlfriend had actually run away to be a sex worker with a man who was also a heavy drug user. I saw some sources say that he was a pimp or something. He was pimping her out or whatever. But again, not 100% sure. Because of this, the son was actually taken away from his mother and put into foster care. And this was due to neglect and child abuse. And I couldn't find any information indicating whether or not Joe was able to get in contact with his son again. But it's probably safe to assume that he didn't get in contact because of how much of a heavy drug user he was himself. So I'm not sure what actually happened to the son after this. I couldn't find any other information. The first murder that Joe has actually officially been found guilty of was that of Catherine Magaziner, and this occurred a year prior, in 1994. So the case with the two homeless men occurred in 1995, but this one is a confirmed one, and it actually occurred in 1994. So I was right. I forgot to put that together. Those weren't his first murders. When I said that it seems really violent for a first murder, those weren't his first murders. There was obviously this one before it, which is said to be in 1994. I had that a little bit out of order and confused myself. My apologies. Catherine Magaziner was a 39-year-old sex worker located in Baltimore, and she sadly came into contact with Joe one night whilst working. At approximately 8 to 9 p.m., Joe took Catherine back to his trailer after meeting her in a local bar, where she proceeded to carry out the agreed sexual services. Approximately 1 hour after they had arrived at Joe's trailer, he proceeded to strangle Catherine to death with an extension cord before removing all of her clothes and personal belongings. He buried her body in a shallow grave approximately 2 feet deep, and this was in the lot of a local pallet company nearby to where Joe's trailer was located. And I saw some sources saying that he lived on the pallet company site. Like his trailer was actually on the pallet company. I don't know whether that's where he worked or something. Maybe he worked there. I'm not 100% sure. Or maybe it was like right next to it. But it was kind of, some of them were really difficult to kind of understand. They weren't very good sources. He knew no one would see him hide the body at the pallet company because it was at the end of a dead-end street and no one visited the business during evening hours. And that's how he was able to do it undetected. It was such a shallow grave as well. 2 feet is not deep. Joe actually returned to where he buried Catherine 6 months later. He then dug her up, removed her skull, before throwing her skull in a trash box and disposing of it within Pennsylvania. And apparently this was done to, I guess, prevent identification. Guess he thought if there was no skull, then they couldn't identify her. He was a bit of a dummy, I guess, and only removed the top part and left the mandible there. So she was actually later identified via dental records because her mandible was left with the rest of her body. A further victim is said to have been sadly killed by Joe as well. 28-year-old Tony Lynn Ingrassia was found deceased by police in 1994, nearby to the same pallet company where the previous attack took place. I say she was found by police, but I'm guessing it wasn't connected to him. It's real. I really had to put things together, and I can't stress that enough. But I saw sources stating that she was actually found in 1994, but maybe she wasn't. Maybe that's when she was killed in 1994 and then was found later on. I'm really, really trying to connect the dots here. Tony was a young woman who really struggled with addictions throughout her whole life. According to her father, Tony was finally starting to improve her life by trying to get clean when she sadly came into contact with Joe. Joe was eventually indicted for the murder of Tony later on when he was arrested, but these charges were eventually dropped due to lack of evidence again. which it's so frustrating because she was literally found in the same place as the other victims. So it's so annoying that the charges were dropped because of a lack of evidence. Like, how can you get more evidence? I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. It could just be circumstantial, but it's so frustrating either way. And sadly, this is 23-year-old Kimberly Spicer. And she met Joe in November of 1996. I believe this was at a bar again. I could be wrong though. Sadly, he stabbed Kimberly to death and hid her body in the same pallet company where Catherine was buried. Kimberly's body was apparently only covered by a red tarp and then dumped under a trailer, which was located 10 feet from where Joe lived. Her body was discovered by police on the 15th of December 1996. He didn't take them very far, did he? He really didn't try and dispose of these people, which is, how did he get away with it for years? He probably only got away with it because these young women were prostitutes and drug abusers as well. And it's sad, but people don't look out for people like this. And it's really upsetting to think about that. Like, these are real people too, but they just go under the radar and people seem to forget about them so quickly. And they're such easy targets for people like Joe. It's just horrible. Another victim, Rita Kemper, was known to share drugs with Joe. But on the 8th of December 1996, when Joe requested sex instead of drugs, Rita refused the advances and attempted to leave Joe's trailer where they were both hanging out. This rejection angered Joe, and he chased her down, beating and strangling her. He then dragged her back to his trailer and attempted to SA her. When Joe turned his back for a second, Rita actually managed to get up again and escape, this time through a window in the trailer, and she successfully managed to run away and even scaled a barbed wire fence, which is said to have been approximately 8 feet high. I don't know how she managed that, but she managed to climb this 8-foot-high barbed wire fence. After making her way over the fence, she flagged down a local passerby in a pickup truck who promptly took her to a nearby gas station where she could contact the police. Joe was later arrested on the 15th of December, and I have no idea why it actually took them a whole 7 days to arrest Joe. Maybe it was a reference issue, or maybe, yet again, the police are just incapable of doing their jobs. I don't know. It could be one or the other. It wouldn't be the first time where police have made dumb decisions like that. She's said to have escaped on the 8th of December, and 7 days later, on the 15th of December, is when they actually came and thought to arrest him. It is said that Joe did intend to kill Rita that day, as he had ran out of special meat, he said. And this is because he had recently opened up an open pit food stand on the side of the road, where he served roast beef and pork sandwiches. The only problem is, he claimed the pork meat he was actually serving to those customers was made from the bodies of the victims he had previously killed. He stated, "The human body tastes very similar to pork. If you mix it together, no one can tell the difference." That was his quote. Surprisingly, I don't get how there is not much information on this. How is there not more information on this? What? This feels like it should be a case that is just everywhere. It's insane. But even this, I could barely find any information on the whole burger stand thing. I couldn't find a picture of the stand, the location of the stand, anything. Why can't I find any information about this? It's such a crazy thing. You'd think that more people would be talking about it. But even that is pretty much all of the information I could find. I saw something that he maybe stored the meat in a cooler box. He apparently cut it off, put it in a Tupperware cooler box thing. That was just from some random references. I can't even confirm that. On the 25th of September 1998, Joe pleaded guilty for the first-degree premeditated murder and robbery of Catherine Magaziner. The charge of robbery was given to Joe as he had taken Catherine's belongings and clothes away from her after her death, with the court ruling that the intentional separation of her body from her belongings constituted to theft. On the 13th of November, the jury sentenced Joe to death for the crimes he committed, with another concurrent sentence of 10 years for the robbery, and with concurrent it means that they would occur at the same time. So he would be, I guess, on death row whilst serving the 10 years for the robbery, so he wouldn't serve the 10 years and then be put to death. But on the 24th of July 2000, Joe's death sentence was actually overturned because an appeal decided that because of the robbery of Catherine happened after her death, it was incidental and couldn't actually be used as an aggravating factor. And in the state of Maryland, it only allows the death penalty to be issued if someone commits another aggravating factor alongside the murder. And this is things such as robbery, arson, genuine things like that. His sentence was reduced to life without the possibility of parole. So he's got out of the death sentence. I couldn't actually find anywhere in these court documents stating about the cannibalism or even the suspected cannibalism. So really, I'm not even 100% sure if the whole burger stand thing is just another lie that he's possibly made up. Maybe he did have a burger stand, but maybe he's using the whole using human meat thing as a lie to try to make himself sound even worse than he already was. On the 5th of August 2017, 62-year-old Joe Metheny was found unresponsive in his prison cell at the Western Correctional Facility in Cumberland, Maryland. He was later pronounced dead, and I really tried to find out the cause of his death, but not a single article actually listed his cause of death, and I saw one thing that said that this might be because it's protected for some reason. I am not 100% sure. I did find some references that stated Joe claimed that the reason he killed was because he got a rush out of it, and it gave him a sense of power over the victims. And he also stated that he never felt any guilt or remorse for his actions. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch today's video. I do apologise that it was a lot shorter than my usual videos, but like I mentioned previously, I did really struggle to find any reliable references for this video, but sadly, this just seems to be the case with some true crime cases. As always, if you did enjoy the video, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and write any case suggestions in the comments down below. You should also see a video suggestion on screen right now that the algorithm thinks you might like, so I would definitely suggest checking that out. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. As always, make sure you're kind to yourself and others, and hopefully I will get to see you guys very soon with another true crime video. Goodbye!